you have immutable object, right? Does all properties of that class need to be final in Java?
Whatever the instance variable of that object are, that has to be permanently made final. If there is some static kind of thing, then for that I think we can ignore, because that is not specific to object but at class level. Static thing we can ignore, and instance things we have to mandatorily get final.
So what is the difference between auto-wired and inject annotation?
Yeah, auto-add actually we use to means dependency injection to create the object of any bin. Actually, both used for the same purpose, but that at the rate inject is from different package, I think, and auto-add is part of the Spring framework. I'm not sure about the at the rate inject of which package, but at the rate auto-add is from the Spring framework. At the rate inject is not from the Spring framework. I think some Java X.
What is the access level of protected access modifier?
Default is same package, protected is for the same package, and also if some class is there which is extending that particular this class.
Yeah.
So in other package, if that is extending, then it is visible when it is a protected one. That particular variable.
Do you know what hash code method returns?
Yeah, it will return a one hash code, which is a unique identification for that particular class, I think.
Yes. So it will return an integer value, and
Yes,
that
yes.
integer value is defines that where exactly we are storing. So for every object there will be a different hash code, the different
Yes, yes.
integer value. Do you have experience in Hibernate or any other similar technology?
Earlier, I worked with Hibernate, and now Spring Data JPML using.
So in Spring Data JPA, how can we create a custom repository?
By the that naming convention, we can actually create, like, if I want to means get some details by name, so that we can give the method name that find by name means if that variable name is in entity class is name, then find by name. If variable name is emp underscore emp name in entity class, then we have to give the name of that method find by emp name or find by ID. Yeah, like that. And if any complex SQL queries I want to implement, then we can provide the SQL queries at the method level also.
So what is Docker image?
So Docker image contains our application as well as other supporting softwares like JDK and Tomcat and other applications as well.
And there is one more thing called Docker container.
Yes, so Docker container is like, for example, OpenShift, which can have multiple Dockers inside it.
Can you convert a list of multiple lists into a linear list?
Yeah, I understand your question. You have a list under another list. I think there is one inbuilt function.
Yeah, so you have a list, and in that list, every element is a list of other lists.
Forgot that inbuilt function in Java. Something called linking list. Call it as
Linking list.
list. Linked list. Something we call it as
Linked list is different. I think
flat map. Flat list or flat map.
Yeah, flat map.
We call it as flat.
Yeah.
Flat map. Yes, exactly. That will convert all your list into one combined list.
Okay, so in Spring, what is dispatcher servlet?
Dispatcher servlet in a Spring. Okay, we can say dispatcher is a front controller in a Spring web application. It used to control web application and the web REST services in a Spring Boot. It's a traditionally, actually we can say where means it's a controller. It's in a Spring MVC. We have a dispatcher servlet.xml files. Then we can use now in a traditional way. Just we have to provide our dispatcher name. For example, Spring framework, which is belong to dispatcher in our web.xml file. It's in all the HTTP requests and it control it receive all the HTTP requests and delegate them to the controller before in servlet is registered with the XML files in previous servlet. Then since new version of API, we can register servlet programmatically in servlet container in initializer. I think I don't know the number exactly, but we can do it programmatically. Then just we have to provide in a Spring Boot, we have to provide a Spring Starter Boot web API. It just contains the dispatcher automatically. In it, just Spring Boot auto configure register and auto configure the dispatcher automatically. Means with the help of this API in a form file. So in a Spring Boot, no need to configure the dispatcher in a web.xml. Just with the help of this API, you can configure automatically in our configuration file.
So can you tell me what is a hash set? What is the features of a hash set?
Hash set is the feature is that means you cannot add duplicate data in it, and you can not add null value also. The order is not preserved in that. Means that is a disadvantage or advantage. I don't know, but the order is not preserved. Hash set is means if you add the data in that hash set, that convert in the hash code also, firstly, and then map to the your bucket.
And what is the way to fetch the element from hash map?
Fetching the element, we are adding put method hash map, put the value and key and value pair. We can iterate it by iterator.
So there is a get method.
Get method.
Yeah, get method. So in hash map, if you want to like get the value, there is a get method, and if you want to save the value in hash map, there is a put method. Hash map stores the value as a key value pair. Okay, you want to get some value, you pass the key, and then in the get method you will pass the key and you will get the value. And whenever you are entering inserting the values in the put method, you will pass the key and value both. So what it will do, it will by the key, it has to, it will know that where exactly the hash map needs to put the value. In hash map, I can tell you something little bit in brief. So in hash map, we store value. It is basically work with the hashing technique. So what is hashing technique? Hashing technique, it has 16 buckets. In hash map internally, it will create a 16 buckets, and then it will store the value. When you use put method, what it will do, internally it will process with the put method, you will pass key and value pair. Okay, so what it will do, internally it will do hashing of the key, and by the hashing it will find the suitable node or bucket from the 16 buckets, and then that bucket will point to the value. In that bucket you will store the value, and then again whenever you are storing something else, again with the key and value, so with the key it will do hashing and find the bucket, and when you try to get the value, what it will do, you will pass the key, and with the key again it will do hashing and find the bucket, and from the bucket it will get the value to you. So suppose there are m number of threads who works on n number of shared synchronized resources. How do you make sure that deadlock does not happen?
First of all, you not synchronize all the methods like completely, like on the method level. You perform synchronization on only the parts which are like required synchronization, or like which require it to be synchronized. For example, while writing operations, so generally read operations do not require synchronization because it can be read parallelly by other people, so it can be multiple. But for read operations, like write operations, like if you're updating certain value which is like shared across different threads, so in that cases you synchronize that particular piece of code where you can utilize like a synchronized lock, which we call as a synchronized block with an object as well, that you can utilize it for a lock, and then you can create like perform the operations inside of that, and then once it is done, the lock is released. So only a part of your method is actually synchronized, not the complete method.
What type of different design patterns you have used?
Strategy, factory, builder patterns, then mostly these are abstract factory requirements. Mostly it is strategy.
As you have used factory design pattern, how it is different from abstract factory design pattern?
So abstract factory, we mostly use it for like getting another factory, like which returns another factory, which we can utilize it for creating another object. I mean, factory is used for creating. It is like a two-layer factory,
Okay.
if I remember it.
Yeah, it's another layer of abstraction over simple factory design pattern. According to you, what is more beneficial, a test driven development approach or the other way? We should develop first, then write the test cases. What is better and why?
I would prefer the test driven. Yeah, I would prefer the test driven, but currently we are following code driven approach, but I would like to prefer the test driven approach.
Why?
Because it is important, because anyways we will write the code, and we also have an code coverage of more than 95% in our code. So after writing the functionality you are testing, so it becomes a indentation to the intent for the developers, right? We want to cover that functionality or bring out this percentage, but it is not like that. The important thing of testing or the test coverage is we want to ensure that no functionality has been missed. That's the important thing, not just bringing up the coverage or write some 80% or 90%. That's not the important thing. So first we want to write a code in a way that every test case fails, so that you get to know that what are all the functionalities available. First, the test case has to fail, and then you start fixing the test cases so that you cover all the functionalities. Even the business analyst can tell what are all the functionalities available, so you don't have to get into the code at first thing. So you can directly start writing your test cases and ensure that everything fails. So
Okay.
from which we can understand all the positive and negative scenarios are covered, and then you start fixing each of the scenarios in your code. So that's how you develop it. So I would prefer the test driven development.
So what are the essential things you will take care while developing your code?
I would ensure that the clean code is maintained. That's what I would ensure. And we always insist on the solid principle for the development. And in the developer's desktop, we have SonarLint installed as a plugin for the static code analysis and ensure that, all the security vulnerabilities or any of the, complex issues that rises from the code are already arrested. And then we have checklist where no developer is allowed to, directly push the code into develop. We always create a feature branch and then push the code. There is always a default reviewer for each of the repositories and then an exclusive developer who knows the functionalities much better. So once the code is reviewed and with the build also, we have a Jenkins build where the build happens and no issues. The code should be buildable. Only then the code can be merged into develop, and only then the automatic deployment happens. With respect to the code, we always ensure to write a clean code, reuse of functionalities, and bringing out the common stuffs to the utilities or to no duplications happen. With the principles are implemented like as small as possible. Like we will split up the functionalities and ensure that the proper inheritance and segregations are being followed.